Hopefulness 2.0, May 1st. I gotta pay rent today. That's not ideal. Especially since I still don't have any money coming in. Shit. I mean, I've got money. Like I said, I could pretty much really desperately push to the end of June. And I'm guessing maybe I'll start working this week. I don't know. And even if I'm making 16 hours a week, 2 days a week or something like that, while it won't cover enough for an entire month, it'll at least buffer the June situation. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. It looks like I'm basically just kind of skating on thin ice and hopefully getting closer to a thicker edge. Excuse me. That's what it seems like. That's what it feels like. Oh, man. Accidentally, I think I may have even said this yesterday, I don't know. Accidentally started, what was I gonna say? Words. I was preheating the oven and I had this in there at the time that I was preheating it. So turn it off, let it cool down just a touch, pulled it out, and then I started doing and I think I mentioned all that because, like I said, it was almost midnight when I started recording, and it was past midnight when I finally managed to finish and was uploading and everything. So yeah, so today I've already got a couple of things that are kind of in the grocery cart for Smart and Final that I'll have delivered here. I've got, I think I have some sugar. I'll have to check. I think I have a bag of sugar though. But I believe I've got each of the flours, sugar, the milk. There's something else I was thinking of. I can't remember what the hell it was. But I still have those 2 meals that I haven't cooked yet, and I'm gonna do those in a bit. I'm gonna do the spaghetti today, and I think I'll do the meatloaf. Yeah, I'll do the meatloaf tomorrow, and then I'll be done with the HelloFresh. I've obviously got some banana bread. Already had a good chunk of it today. Clean some stuff off at some point. I'm gonna clean a bunch of stuff at some point. But yeah. It's I feel like I'm just kind of in this, okay, so here's the thing that it's an issue with me. It's not a good thing that I do, but it is very difficult for me to not do, and that is waiting mode. So let's say for instance I had an appointment tomorrow afternoon. I think I even have one. I'm not sure. I think I have a phone call that I have. But maybe tomorrow or Tuesday, I'm not sure. Anyway. So let's just say I have to go a certain place at a certain time tomorrow. I would get up around 10 or something like I normally would. And then I would literally do almost nothing all day. I would just be in waiting mode. Because if I were to try and go to the grocery store, or if I were to, try to do something else, some other kind of errand or whatever, because of the time blindness that I deal with on a regular basis, sure, I could use clocks and I could use timers and all sorts of other stuff. But that would also require some forethought and some understanding of the time blindness and that would be a productive ability, and I don't have that for the most part. I mean, like, this says it's supposed to be doable in like, it says prep time 10 minutes, cook time 30 minutes. Okay, so I cooked a little longer on the stovetop because I actually cooked the onions down quite a bit. But the whole process took me like an hour and a half. So I spent 3 times twice, a little bit more than twice the expected overall time frame for this. And it's like, I mean, I don't think I was wasting time while I was doing it. Make sure I was talking during the whole process and everything, and I'm sure that's part of it. But that's kind of also how I do stuff too. So I mean, the whole thing is just kind of bleh, for lack of a better word. I'll get some chicken. I think that was another thing that I was mentioning when I kind of lost track of. Some parm, some shaky cheese parmesan, so that I have that to just kind of add to the pizza and see how well that works. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I have some staples that I'm like working with and trying to maintain on some level while also expanding slightly here and there. Like the banana bread is very much a staple at this point. I mean, obviously I've got to get bananas and they've got to, ripen for quite a while in order for them to become banana bread material. But at the very least, I'm sort of planning ahead in that regard. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to have some banana bread for, a couple of days at some point in the future. And it's like the bananas being out are a regular reminder, not just visually, but also aromatically. I can smell them. And so they have a presence that can't just be ignored unless I, stuck them in the fridge or something, which is why a lot of stuff ends up just being in the fridge for a while. So yeah. But to kind of get back to the point, and the reason why I even brought up the whole, waiting mode thing is that's what it feels like I'm doing, but with the job. It's like I'm waiting on the job so then I know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it, and I can schedule around that, because I don't... A big weakness of mine is not being able to schedule around the unknown when there's literally nothing happening. And that's the sad part. It's like I've got nothing going on, literally, yet I can't seem to schedule around it. But then, like, once I have actual things to do, it's easier to schedule around it. But then at the same time, I still do that whole, like, other, that smaller version of the waiting mode. And, it ends up wasting a lot of time. It's both relaxing, but it's also frustrating as well. Because, like, it's frustrating because I feel like I could do more. It's like I feel guilty for not doing enough. And I'm sure, if I said something like that to my therapist, she'd be, or not my therapist, my psychiatrist, she'd be like, well, there's no reason to feel that way, or she would word it better than that, but I'm gonna do a little bit of sharpening of the knife. Alright, feels rather smooth there, so then we'll come in here. I think that might have been like the 3rd time I've used this on my knife so far. I don't really need it very often, but it's still good to have. And I mean, it's a good thing, generally speaking, that especially when using something like a pull-through sharpener, you don't really use it too frequently. I mean, unless the knife needs it. I mean, this thing has been sitting. It had been sitting in the in storage of some kind or another for nearly 2 years now. I mean, sure, I've been using it more or less pretty regularly these last several months. Living at the Airbnb in and out over here. But there are some dull spots that I can see because it's not super sharp or anything, but that's not the point of it. It's a good solid $40 knife that I almost dropped that on my foot. It's a good solid $40 knife that I almost dropped. Or no, I didn't almost drop. This I almost dropped. It was like $15. That I bought. I mean, I bought that knife. Let's see. When I was living at the sober living. Oh shit! I put it in wrong. I wonder if it felt wrong the whole time. That's what he said about her. Anyway, Jessica Cox, 2012. Anyway, so I bought when I was living at the sober living. Right before I moved over into the apartment, I bought this. Right. In fact, I think I bought it when I moved over there, and my address was still at the front house, as we called it. And this did a lot of work. It was really handy. And then towards the end of my time living there is when I bought this. And they're from the same company. They're Victorinox. They're the people who make Swiss Army knives. And so, these are really all the knives you need in life. These two knives will do 99.99999% of the work that you ever have to do. Excuse me. Chef knife is 95% of the work. It'll do so much of what you need done. And as long as it feels like, I bought it on Amazon, but like when I got it, I was like, okay, this feels good. It's like, it feels lightweight, but it doesn't feel so lightweight as to feel like it's going to fly out of my hand kind of thing. And I know this doesn't seem like a very safe thing to do, but I'm being cautious. Got a part of the fuzz from the towel caught on there. But, it's a stamped blade. It's nothing like super fancy or anything. Again, $40 for a knife. And it's Farberware. I believe it, no, Farberware. There's an, I can't remember the exact name, but it's whatever the, whoever makes the plastic handles. Again, it's, stamped, molded type thing. And, it's good, like, it's a good seam. Like, you can barely tell it's there, except towards the end. And that could just be because of handling or something, I don't know. But it fits well in my hand. It's heavy enough to do what I need done. Now, occasionally, I gotta put some work into it, but it's not, and it has, I can do good leverage when it comes to some hardcore type stuff. I don't need a cleaver or anything. Like, if I wanted to cut this bad boy in half, I could do that, no problem. Now, I can't just go, I'm still gonna need some leverage from my other hand, to do it, but, it's about all that's necessary, really. But yeah, those two can do a lot. And even if you do a lot with them, you don't necessarily have to sharpen them super frequently. It depends on how often you use them and for what you're using them for. And, once you get accustomed to using the knife and understanding how it functions and how it feels in your hand when it comes to slicing and cutting and all that stuff, then you'll have a better understanding of when it needs to be sharpened. And I could tell the other day, I was like, probably a good idea to sharpen it. It's better to have a sharp knife than a dull knife, and it's also safer to have a sharp knife than a dull knife. And if you start feeling like it's grabbing more, that it's not really slicing in certain spots or what have you, it might be a good time to sharpen it. It's one of those things where so much of cooking in general is doing things by feel, trial and error, time. It just requires all of those things in order for you to appropriately get better at. I mean, it's like anything. It takes time to get better at something. And this is one of the few things that I actually... It's funny because I go back to my therapist thinking about something he said some time ago, and he's like, you need to do whatever you're... it's like, do whatever you're willing to do. Something along those lines. And for the longest time, there wasn't much that I was willing to do. Cooking and baking is something that I'm willing to do. It's something that I'm willing to approach and try to improve and try to expand upon in some capacity or another. It's it can get expensive if you do it the wrong way, or if you decide to go get the most expensive fucking equipment ever. Maybe you get yourself a KitchenAid for mixer that's like countertop mixers that's $300-$400. You get yourself a Dutch oven that's $300-$400. Now, I like to take Adam Savage's approach to tools and the like. First, get something that's of a reasonable price, relatively cheap. It's kind of like with the knife. I could have gotten a $20, maybe even a $10 knife, but I didn't want to do that. Granted, this was $10. Now maybe I could have found one that was $4 or $3. I don't know. And I mean these forks, these Norks, which I still fucking love. I love these things. Whenever I pick them up, I'm just like, this is so cool. Good reasonable balance. They fit well in my hand. The side of it with the width, makes great for when you got to chop down on stuff. I only have 3 of them. I think they're $15 for a pack of 3 or something like that. But certain things, buy on the cheaper side if it's something that you think that you're going to be using a lot of, and then when it's time to replace it, if you need to replace with something better, something more expensive, that way you put yourself in a position where you're not overspending on something that you may not necessarily need to spend that much on. He's talking about screwdrivers and other kinds of tools when it comes to maker shop and stuff like that. I mean, you can't necessarily find yourself, a mill machine for $1,000. So you might, but you can't find one for $100. And so it depends on the type of tool and everything, of course. My microwave that I don't use because I have this one here. It was $20 from Walmart. Now, is Walmart the ideal place? No. With regards to this this whole blender situation, my Ninja, I'll just use the motor. It was okay, there's this, and then there's the sort of food processor version, and then there's the blender version, but and unlike a stand mixer or something, or not a stand mixer, but one that a countertop blender kind of situation, where the motor and housing and all that stuff is just sitting on the table, taking up space and blah blah blah. You gotta put it there, whatever. It's interchangeable between the two. Now you could say that this is less efficient, depending on the way you look at things. I don't know, but it's super simple. It's easy, and I mean the button, just put it on there and push. There's no speed variations or anything like that. It's simple. I think it was maybe $30 or $40. And, it's 2 containers. That's really all I need. And they got little, silicone feet, so it makes, keeping them stable on a table well. There's lids for them. So if you're going to store anything inside of it. And so, like, it's efficient. Is a single Vitamix blender that's $400 the better way to go? Maybe. But it's not worth it right now for me because it's not something I can afford. And it's not something that I use frequently enough to warrant such a price. It's like with this bottle of vinegar, I'm probably going to buy some more vinegar soon. And I might buy a gallon of it. I don't know. But I bought that one bottle, which was probably too expensive, to be honest. It was probably like $4. But it was like the only size of a reasonable price that I could find. Or rather, reasonable size and reasonable price. Because I wasn't exactly sure how much vinegar I was going to be using for anything. And yeah, it's a staple that one should definitely have in their house. But also, volume is kind of an issue, especially when I was thinking I might not be here this month or the next month. And I don't know. I still might not be. I'm not sure. And, all of these play into how and why I'm doing things. So it's like, it's a game of cat and mouse as to whether or not I'm going to be fucking homeless again, and it sucks. Meanwhile, I'm trying to make the best of this place as I can. What I've got. I wouldn't mind being able to stay here if I could. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to be able to have a place to myself, just like I've wanted for a long time, to stabilize my life, to start saving some more money, start maybe, exploring a little bit more. One way or another, whether it's outside or inside, doesn't matter. I used to explore a lot more when I had money. When I was paying $300 a month for rent and I had $10,000 in the bank, yeah, it was a lot easier to explore stuff. I could go hang out with friends, and it was easier to make friends because then I was able to spend time and thus money with them. The gravy train is gone, so I've got to figure out some shit. And, I'm in a situation where it's like, well, the housing is expensive, but at the same time, it's like expensive everywhere, it would seem, and so should I be overpaying for where I'm living or not having a roof over my head at all? And so I made the decision back in November. Well, more like October, anyway. Yeah, I don't know what the hell I was really going to be. I kind of don't want to do these anymore, but at the same time, I feel like I guess I should, just for documentation purposes. I'm not really feeling it sometimes, which is why I didn't fucking record until almost midnight yesterday. It gets my thoughts out, it does help a bit, but at the same time, it just, it's like so many other things. I don't feel like doing it sometimes. I feel like doing something else. Sometimes I just do that instead. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and do some other stuff, including order some groceries. Have fun.